Hi, I'm Allan. Welcome to Conversations with Allan. Over the last couple of conversations, I've shared quite a bit about why Terry and I moved our company to eXp Realty. But there's a part of that story I've mostly skipped over, and it's the part I find most revealing about myself. Why did it take us so long? We didn't study eXp for a few weeks and then jump. We circled it. We hesitated. We found reasons to wait. And the honest answer to why is a little uncomfortable to admit. Simply, we were comfortable. Business was good. We liked what we'd built. Our agents were happy. We weren't solving a crisis because there wasn't one. And I didn't want to change. I've told you that before, and I keep coming back to it because it's the truest thing about this whole story. This wasn't a man looking for an exit. This was a man who had every reason to stay exactly where he was. But here's what I've learned about comfort, and it took me most of my career to see it clearly. Comfort is a wonderful thing. It's also one of the most expensive things you'll ever buy. And the strange part is you usually don't find out the price until years after you've paid it. Let me tell you how my mind actually worked through this, because I think it's where a lot of experienced people get stuck. When I thought about changing, I could visualize every cost clearly, or at least what I thought would be costs. The disruption, the learning curve, the inconvenience, the uncertainty, explaining the move to people, maybe even the quiet embarrassment of admitting that something I'd defended for years might not be my best choice anymore. Every one of those costs seemed vivid to me. I could practically itemize them. But there was a whole other column I wasn't looking at, and that was the cost of staying. What opportunities was I passing up? What was I not learning? What could my business become that it simply couldn't become where it was? And that column was blank. Not because it was empty, but because I hadn't bothered to fill it in. This is probably where my finance background shows up. Somebody hands me a proposal and says, "Allan, this will cost you X." I can work with that. Give me the numbers, because I understand numbers. But opportunity cost is a different animal. You're trying to put a value on something that hasn't happened. And that's exactly why it's so easy to ignore. You never get an invoice for the opportunity you missed. Nobody sends you a bill for the 5 years you spent standing still. You just don't get those years back. Think about it. Now, I want to be careful here, because I'm not telling you that change is automatically good. It isn't. I've watched people make changes they never should have made, and sometimes staying exactly where you are is the smartest decision on the board. But you ought to know why you're staying. There's an enormous difference between saying, "I've evaluated my options and this is still the best place for me," as opposed to saying, "I'm staying because leaving would be uncomfortable." Those two sentences can lead to the very same decision, but they come from completely different places. One is a choice. The other is just inertia, wearing the costume of a choice. And if I'm honest, for a while, I was in that second camp. I hadn't really evaluated. I'd just gotten comfortable and called that a decision. What changed for me was the question itself. When Terry and I started studying, I was looking at eXp as a competitor, something to understand so I could compete against it, Remember, I wasn't going anywhere. But the longer we looked, the question quietly turned itself around. It started off as, would changing be worth all that disruption? And it became, what might it cost us if we don't? That's a completely different question, because now I wasn't weighing what we had against something unfamiliar and scary. I was weighing two different futures against each other, the one where we stayed and the one where we didn't. And for the first time, that blank column started filling in. I'll tell you something else that was in the air at that time. I was almost 70, and it would have been the easiest thing in the world to say, Allan, you've built a good business, you've had a good run, why are you complicating your life now? I'm sure some people thought exactly that. Maybe some of them were being kind when they thought it. But that's just never been how I'm put together. I wasn't thinking about winding down. I was thinking about what I could still build, what I could still learn, who I could still help, what the next 10 years might look like if I gave myself access to things I didn't currently have. And when I looked at it that way, staying comfortable suddenly didn't feel all that comfortable. I still feel that way now. Here's the idea I wish I'd understood decades earlier. The absence of a problem is not the same thing as the presence of an opportunity. You can be perfectly happy where you are and still discover something better. You can be genuinely successful and still be leaving real potential on the table. You can be deeply grateful for everything an organization has given you and still admit, honestly, that it may not be the right platform for where you're headed next. Those things aren't contradictions. That's just what honest evaluations look like. For Terry and me, that's the whole story in one sentence. We didn't leave something bad. We took something good and gave it access to something bigger. And looking back, that's one of the things I'm most grateful that I didn't talk myself out of. So let me leave you with a question. And it's a little different from the ones I usually ask right about now. Not whether you're comfortable. I'll assume you are. Comfort's easy to come by when you're good at what you do. Here's the harder one. Is your comfort a decision you've actually made or just a decision you've been avoiding? There's no wrong answer, but I think it's worth knowing which one it is. If that serves something within you, I'd like to hear about it below. Until next time, build your career on purpose. I'm Allan Nanny. I'll see you in the next conversation.